Jeremy Brett. Well, you say in the play that it is a great chore to make yourself 1 foot shorter for a period of days. Here on stage with The Secret of Sherlock Holmes, can you as an actor indicate what is the chore for several days, to paraphrase Holmes now? What is the hard part of this?
The hard part is past. The hard part was the first 5 years. I found him the hardest person to get into and explore and create from inside myself, because he's the most complex character I've ever played, and I have played Macbeth and I have played Hamlet, and this is the most private creature, isolated creature, and a genius to boot. They're very difficult to actually find within oneself if one's just a mere human being.
Lady Doyle indicated to me that at first she wasn't quite sure if she took to your characterization. Now, has she changed? Has your characterization changed? What?
I don't really know what's happened because I'm subjected to it, but when she said that I was the Sherlock Holmes of her childhood, I went home and I must be honest, I had a bottle of champagne on that, because it's a very, very, very personal thing. Everybody's Sherlock Holmes. And I didn't realize this to begin with. Every child, every girl, boy, woman, man, everybody is Sherlock Holmes. And all I can do, rather like taking a brass rubbing in a church, is to indicate it and not upset their image that they already have as Holmes, which could be a little bit of Robert Stevens, it could be a little bit of Basil Rathbone, it could be a little bit of Peter Cushing, it could be a phantom of a dream of William Gillette, whatever. Therefore, all that's happened is the torch passed to me, and of course it will pass on to the next person. There's nothing ever that can touch Sherlock, the great, brilliant detective. He lives on. Only we poor thespians aim and very often fall flat on our faces endeavoring to play him.
He says at one point that, Watson, I fear maybe I really want to be found out. Now, without divulging too much of the play, how might you reinterpret that for listeners who have not yet seen it?
Well, the secret is, I suppose, I tell you one of the secrets, I suppose, is the fact that Edward Hardwicke, myself, have been playing it for 3 years. Therefore, it's rather like being seeped in the characters. I do believe that my darling Edward is the greatest Watson that has ever been, because he has combined all the elements, I believe. He's not the buffoon. He's a quizzical, wise, humorous, good friend, a man of medicine and a soldier. And Ted has achieved all that and plays him with tremendous dignity. And a certain boyish charm, which is marvelous because it gives him that youthful thing that I always think that the optimism of Watson balances the pessimism of Holmes. And the secret is really trying to find out, without being too explicit, what makes Holmes tick and what are some of his lonelier moments all about.
Although there's an occasional great guffaw of laughter.
That amazes me. I didn't expect there to be so much humor. I'm thrilled about that. I mustn't pay any attention to that. The most important thing in the world is not to guy him ever, or them, or the Victorian period. And I must say thank you to Granada Studios, because I think their tapestry of the background of a Victorian England, if you remove the Holmes and the Watson from the Granada series for a moment and just look at what they have achieved with their researchers, their designers, is absolutely stunning.
How many of the stories now have been filmed for television?
26.
Okay. Now, the plans are afoot, as they say.
Yes, we are going to do this play. I think we're taking it to the States next year. We're also going to do, I think, a couple of specials next year for Granada. We were thinking of doing it for theatrical release, but I think that would be sad. It would not reach so far. And the most important people are the ones that are not able to get to the cinema. Because this has done, I think, because we're doing the original stories, is to reopen the book. And if we've done nothing else in our endeavors, it is, I hope, as I'm gauging from the children that are coming to see the show and waiting for me at the stage door, they all have their full Sherlock Holmes canon. And they're going back to reading. And that, I think, is a good idea. When there's so many people who've taken Doyle apart and just used the names and not really done the stories, if they're going back to reading Doyle, then Doyle lives on, and the 21st century has their heroes.
Would you place this moment in time now? What time is it now? Where are we? What happens within just a few moments? Wash pants and a T-shirt, tousled hair, to what?
Well, it becomes what I call my penguin transformation. And I go into the black and white face, and now, because I've been playing him for 5 years, and it used to frighten me very much to play him, because he's so isolated and so removed, and I now don't find that a threat at all, and it's a quick dash into him, and then before I have time to think, I leap onto the stage, and I'm healed, of course, by the audiences.
Is it fair to say that there's a certain choreography to your movements, not just in the bows that you take, but everywhere? There's a dance-like quality. Is that accidental, or...?
No, I'm afraid it's even more pathetic than that. It's to do with trying to look as though he's an athlete. I mean, Doyle's given any actor this impossible task to be a brilliant fencer, a brilliant boxer, a brilliant athlete, a brilliant mind, a genius. So what I do is I use the movement to indicate not only speed of mind, but enormous fitness. I mean, I don't think he ever does any press-ups, ever, in the books.
And it's a rather mercurial kind of movement, too. It's unexpected sometimes.
Yes, well, I think that's a way to try and indicate. He's also got double hearing, I've decided. I mean, he hears ahead of time, I think. And very often he knows what Watson's going to say before he says it. I try and do that 3 times in the play. That it's his brain is of such proportions and speed. That's why I paint my forehead white, to make it look as though there's something in it.
Interesting. Take us to a time when you were a boy, maybe, first encountering these stories. Then, or at some time later, you said, no, this doesn't live for me, it doesn't work.
Well, he never appealed to me. I mean, I was frightened of him, to tell the truth, and I suppose I was nervous of being rejected by him, because it's like climbing a monument to play him. A mountain face, and without equipment. And I thought that if I ever met him, he would just walk straight past, because that's the genius and the brilliance of the man, and that's the way he is. Unless I had a case for him, he would not be interested in an act at all. Therefore, I started a long way away from him, and had to come towards him. I was always much closer to Watson. I played Watson opposite Charlton Heston at the Armisen Theatre in 1980, I think it was, in Los Angeles. And I really loved playing Watson. Holmes I found much more complicated, but playing Watson was very useful, because it taught me so much when I came to playing Holmes, because they're only 2 halves of the same man's imagination. But the genius is Doyle. I mean, the genius is Doyle. And all we can do is to raise our hat to him and thank God for him, because he's one of the greatest writers of the 19th century, not fully recognized, I don't think, as yet. I think he stands with Dickens. And because they're thrillers, they're put into a separate compartment. That's not actually accurate. And I think what is so good about the play is we don't have a case. So it's really about them, and I have some of the most beautiful writing that Doyle has ever written, because Jeremy Paul, our author, has incorporated so much of Doyle. I mean, the Rose speech, for example, from the Naval Treaty, is one of the most beautiful speeches. And then there are lots of little insights about his childhood, what his childhood was like. And I'm able to say on stage how grateful I am to Watson, which I'm not allowed to do in the canon. But no, because Watson's writing it.
And what a set, like your thoughts. Quicksilver, too. It changes, turns. It's like a facet turned in the light.
I think one of my most favorite moments is when we have this domestic scene when Holmes says, "It makes it easier for me to propose that you should come away with me on the continent to Switzerland." And the Reichenbach suddenly smashes the entire theatre down. I love that. He comes right into the domestic scene and takes all the furniture and the lot and floods the theatre. It's quite amazing.
It must be such a joy to get back to a continuity of performance instead of being broken up by the exigencies of camera and lighting for the television.
Well, film is fascinating. It's like building the most enormous mosaic. It is the most brilliantly exciting medium, I think, But what is so lovely about the theatre is that you do have the warmth of people being there. Also, you learn the play, and then there are no more lines to learn for a while, whereas if you're doing it on film, you're learning all the time.
Finally, some hard facts now about the play. When did you first hear about it? Did you have a part in the writing of it? And how long has it been in preparation?
I commissioned the play last year, and I did 8 hours on tape, all my internal actor's notes to myself to try and bring life to my characterization about his childhood, about my feelings for Watson, about my feelings for Moriarty, who Moriarty might be, and elements about his father and his mother and Jeremy within 6 weeks produced this incredible play. And we did it for one night last year. I bought a theatre for Sunday night, and we did it in front of friends. And we were trying to decide whether it was a recital or whether it was a play. And Duncan Weldon, our wonderful producer, said, it's a play, it's a play, it's a play. And so here we are.
And when Watson takes that covering off the couch after you've returned, and with a flourish throws it off the couch with joy, that's a great moment.
Yes, it is.
And it's his moment.
I tell you what I think is wonderful. The play, forget the coup de théâtre, because we can't tell that, which is fascinating and very dangerous. What is terribly exciting is the friendship, which we all know is there, is allowed to be demonstrated. Now, friendship between men is very unfashionable at the end of the 20th century. At the end of the 19th century, men were living in their clubs, and the women were on pedestals, and they moved between pedestal and, I'm afraid, the whorehouses or whatever, or the opium dens. But the men were clubs and units. And I think it's so refreshing to see friendship demonstrated on the stage. Two great friends. And I think that's really what, if there's a poem in this, and I think there is, I think it's about, because the play is about friendship. And I hope we leave our darling friends intact for the next century.